everybody, this morning I'm in Westfield, Indiana. In fact, I'm right up here next to Westfield High School, next to the entrance of, at least one of the entrances of Asa Bales Park. And I'm gonna talk about Westfield, Carmel, and Zionsville in this video because they recently were voted in the top 10 on Wallet Hub's best small cities to live in the country. And so we're gonna talk about why this is a little unfair sometimes and a little bit misleading sometimes. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Westfield, Indiana, Zionsville, Indiana, Carmel, Indiana, of course, Indianapolis, Indiana, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and also tap the little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video. Now, we have people reaching out to us from all over the country that, they absolutely have questions about Carmel, Zionsville, Westfield, but also nearby Noblesville, Fishers, of course, Indianapolis, and many of the other towns and cities that surround Indianapolis. So if you have questions at all about any of these places, then don't hesitate to reach out. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move anywhere around the Indianapolis metro. All right, guys, so today I'm here in Westfield, across from Westfield High School, like I said, and there's a new list. It seems like there's a list every single year, and maybe even a couple per year, depending on what website or news outlet, that has the top small cities to live in the country. And it had 1,300 cities that were eligible for this. They had to be cities, of course there's some criteria. They had to be at least 25,000 people population, and they went all the way up to about 100,000 people or so. Now I know some of those are just a little bit over, but that's a pretty wide range on the population. So saying 100,000 is still considered a small city, but out of 1,300 across the country, there were 43 different factors or different variables they used to rank them against one another. And surprisingly, and also maybe not surprisingly, Westfield, Zionsville, and Carmel all ended up in the top 10 out of these 1,300. So, that's crazy that they're all in the same state of Indiana, and actually they all share borders with one another too. So they're all right next to one another. Carmel's just on the north side of Indianapolis, and then you've got Westfield just to the north of that. I'm gonna cross this street, corner of Hoover and Union right now. So this is kind of old and also new Westfield a little bit. There's a lot of older buildings through here, some that were actually built in the 1800s. Crazy to think about, but then also some brand new ones too. This is a place that's changed a lot, whole lot. So all of them are really close together. Zionsville's off to the west of Carmel, but then looking through that list, some of the big ones for Westfield, Carmel, and Zionsville were restaurants per capita, affordability. Now, of course, a lot of people around here might think, affordability, are you kidding? Yeah, these are some of the most expensive places to live in the entire Indianapolis metro or even the whole state. But when you compare affordability across the country, it starts to make a little bit more sense. Unemployment, employment opportunities, the list goes on and on and on. And when you mix all that together, they get a score. And these three cities just happen to have scores that were in the top 10. Now, scrolling through that list, if I had my counting right, because it didn't have numbers next to them, Fishers was in there at 26. They had Noblesville was in there inside the top 100. They had Brownsburg in there around 53rd or so, I think, which was great. And Plainfield was in there too. So these lists are, I guess, pretty fantastic for those cities and maybe advertising those cities, but in some way they're a little bit unfair too. So when you get into a place like Westfield, and I am not knocking on Westfield at all. In fact, right back there, Westfield High School, I spent 16 years there. I've seen this place grow up a lot over those 16 years. It has become a city from a very, very small town when I started working there in the 90s as a high school science teacher. I only got into real estate 10 years ago, and I really enjoy what I do now, but I also really enjoyed that and accidentally kind of fell into real estate, and it started taking up more time, and then finally I had to just make the switch. But still love Westfield. Now, I'm not knocking Westfield, I'm not knocking Carmel, I'm not knocking Zionsville either, but it's a little bit unfair when these lists do come up. You might have a few people that sit at their kitchen table or their office desk, and they are crunching these numbers, trying to figure out what's gonna be the best location for them to move to. I don't think people really do that here locally when they're moving from one city to the next. In fact, most people kind of move within the same city because they're in the same school district. And if you're in California or Texas or Arizona or Florida or New York or wherever you're moving from to get here, I don't really think that people are basing their decisions solely on lists like this. If you do, or if they do influence you at all, I think it can get a little unfair, and it can also get to the point where It might limit you some, where you think, I have to be at any cost in Westfield or at any cost in Carmel. You can end up sometimes overpaying for a place, or paying just, maybe not overpaying, but you could have gotten the same place or something really close to it for less. It just has a different address. You're limiting your choices. I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that there are other places. I was so happy to at least see Brownsburg on that list, Plainfield on that list, and Noblesville on that list. I feel like places like that get completely overshadowed. Now, if geographically the north side is the best for you because of your commute to your job, or just the general location because you wanted to be, let's say, closer to Chicago, well, if you're on the south side in Greenwood, well, you can add another 30 minutes onto that drive to Chicago. Or you needed to be just near I-69 to get to Muncie or something like that, or Fort Wayne, well, then geographically the north side might be better for you. But then again, the south side might be better for you geographically. So I think most of the time people move based on what they need, not the statistics of what everybody else is necessarily requiring or what the statistics are saying about a particular city. Like employment. Well, employment might be fantastic and the unemployment rate in a city might be very, very low, but you might work in a specific industry or job that there aren't any jobs in that city. There's nothing in Carmel for you. There's nothing in Westfield for you. And you're gonna have to drive somewhere else or work remotely, or it's not gonna be an option for you at all. And when you get into schools, of course, school rankings, that was a big deal in the list. And it's something that there aren't great schools in just those three cities. There are great schools in Noblesville, great schools in Fishers, great schools in Brownsburg and Plainfield, which are on there, but Avon, Greenwood, and Greenwood has multiple school districts. And even outside of that, you've got some very highly ranking school districts. So Wallet Hub is the name of this site. It's the name of the publication that put this list out. You know, of course, have Money Magazine, you have US News, you have CNN, you have all these other outlets as well that put out lists that are similar to this. I don't think they make decisions based on these lists necessarily, and they can pigeonhole you a little bit. They can get you caught in a situation that bends your mind so much that you feel like those are the only choices out there, when in fact they are not the only choices. Now, this list, I'll put a link in the description so you can check it out if you want to, because of course all the other states in the country for the most part are represented in some way, given that there's 1,300 cities on this list, small cities on this list, not just Indiana. So you can kind of make your decision, I guess, about how important this list is to you. But take them always with a grain of salt, because they aren't always necessarily the absolute truth or the absolute answer for you. So if you have questions at all about Westfield, Carmel, nearby Fishers, Noblesville, of course Zionsville, which is on that list, or any of the other cities like Plainfield, Brownsburg, Greenwood, Greenfield, Danville, Avon, any of them surrounding Indianapolis, and of course Indianapolis itself, then reach out any way that you know how, and we'll catch you in the next one.